Hi everyone. Today I'm just playing with some little flowers. Sometimes I just like painting some of these. So I thought I'd share them with you. I am working on my Meeden paper. It's 100% cotton. I love, as you know, the Artisto pads. I just happen to have this sitting here. I think I painted something on the other side. So there we go. I will put a link to that if you like. I also just happen to have my old Winsor Newton palette sitting here, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. And I've got my Meeden water dish. It's not as dirty as it might look in the camera. I've got my wash and my rinse. Let's see, what else have I got? I've got my little Meeden palette. I love this one because it's kind of tiny, and I'm using my brushes that are coming out in September. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of play here and paint a few flowers. These are fun flowers, I think, on their own. They're just easy. You can put them in as fillers in between your larger florals, and they're just kind of relaxing for me. Okay, I think I'm actually going to use my larger Meeden palette. This one, interestingly, I used what they call interference. I did a tutorial the other day, and I noticed because it's acrylic, it got kind of chunky when I went back into it, so I don't want to use that. Okay, so I'm going to use this. Let's see, the first little flower I'm going to do, it'll just be some tiny little, I'm not sure what all of these flowers are going to be called. I'm just kind of taking interesting ones that I like to paint. So I'm going to go ahead and load my brush. This is, of course, Quin Magenta. That's kind of my brush color in between Opera Rose and Quin Magenta. And I'm loading my brush from the side so I don't damage the tip. And I'll put a little bit in my palette here. I've got some sparkles in here from MAB. Her, I think that was the holographic series, but it's okay. I'm just playing right now anyway. So I'm always resting the side of my palm on the paper because it just helps me have a little more control. I also tend to hold my brush right about here. Again, it gives me a little bit more control. The farther back, you're gonna have a little bit more movement and freedom, which can be used. And for my first little flower, I think, let's just do like a little, maybe 5 petal. So I'm using the tip of my brush, and then I've got my brush almost horizontal to my paper because I want to go from the tip and press down, and it makes a perfect little petal. So we'll just do 5 of those. One, do another one here. I love using the side of my brush. I just think it really has some interesting techniques and interesting effects rather. And then for maybe the side, to make it look like it's on its side, I might start here, point, add some more pressure, and then to a point. So it kind of looks like the side of a petal there. Let's do a couple more here because I want to have kind of a tiny little bouquet. So just applying pressure, getting all the different angles and sides. I might come over here. Let's see, we can make this one like that. And then maybe one more right here. There we go. And then while that's kind of wet, I'm going to go ahead and wash and rinse my brush. By the way, this brush that I have in my set, make sure you go to the interest list. That'll help get them released in September. I fashioned it or designed it after the 8 long round Princeton, which I love. And if you watch my tutorials, I use those a lot. Okay, I'm going to go into, this is the sap green, loading the side of my brush. It's kind of my go-to green, and I don't want too much in there. And I'm just going to use the tip of my brush and create some little stems. You can kind of, I love it. You can kind of see the little sparkles from my holograph. I've always got these in my palette. They're just so pretty. I mix them quite often with my colors. I've got a little fuzz in there. So they're quite often already in my palette, which is fine with me. And so we've got our little stems. And then I'm just going to do these little dabs for some little leaves, tucking them into my flowers. And look at that. Look at how simple. Now what I can do is, when this is dry, which it might be right now, I usually go in with either like a cad yellow or maybe a Payne's gray. And let's see, I'll do a couple just so you can see the difference. So I'm going into my cad yellow here. I'm never going in with the tip of my brush if I can help it. And I'll just do some little dabs. Now it was a little bit wet, so that it's spreading a tiny bit. So I'll do 2 with the yellow, and then let me go in with like a black or a dark blue, or here's even Prussian blue. I can use that. And I tend to kind of like the little black dots, or in this case, Prussian blue. So there you go. There's some fun little centers. And then let's see, for the next one, let's do some berries for the next one. I'm going to go into the cad yellow. Got some on my palette here. And I'm doing about 50% water, 50% pigment. So it's got a nice medium value. And I'm resting my hand again and just using the tip of my brush. And I'm kind of going to draw them in, but color them in. And, you know, leave some white in there just for some interest. So don't completely fill those circles in. Leave a little bit of white so it looks like maybe a shiny area. And I'm even getting lighter in value. So I don't want to have the whole thing the same color. And then what I think I'll go into is that magenta again. And I'm just going to go in and add in some little pink berries in between. And again, I've got different values in there. So some have more pigment and are a little bit brighter. And I just think these are fun. They're just a fun little touch for your flowers, your florals to add in. And then what I'll just do there is wash and rinse my brush, tap it off, and pick up some of that green again. And I'm just going to go in and create some little stems, kind of like we did here. Tapping off my brush a bit. And look how cute they are. They're just a fun little addition to your florals. If you feel like you're looking at your florals and they look like they kind of need a little bit of something, and you could add some leaves here, or you don't even really have to. And I'm just doing those by applying some pressure at the tip. So look at how cute those are. Very easy too. Let's see, we could do, well, I don't even know for sure what these are going to be called, but they're kind of cute. And I'm actually going to use I've got some more of that sparkle in here. So I'm using my turquoise, and then it's got that hologram sparkle in there. And these will just be kind of almost, I don't even know what these would be called, but doesn't matter. They're cute. And again, I'm going to do dabs. These are always great fillers for like a little spray of flowers. They're really fun. And I actually really like the little sparkles. I went in and just put a tiny bit of the turquoise paint on the end of my brush, and I'm dabbing in just to create some interest. But these are fun to kind of put like a branch coming out, a stem coming out, and then those hanging off it. And look at how pretty the blue and the pinks go. And now we'll go in, just add in some of the little thin branches. So I'm just getting the tip of my brush, very light pressure. And to get the tip of my brush, I want to hold my brush more upright. because the more to the side, the more you're going to bring in the belly of the brush, which is that mid part of the brush, and it holds a lot more water. It creates a lot wider brush stroke. And look how cute. Aren't these fun and so easy? And they look like little berries or just some fun fillers. And then I might just add in again with those dabs some little, look at how cute, you guys. These, I love simplicity like this. I really do. Let's see, we could do some salvia or maybe lavender. So I'm going to grab some of that purple. My salvia is huge right now. So this is going to be kind of a mix of the two of those. So it's going to be those dabs again. But I do notice lavender is a little bit more in bunches, and my salvia is like a long stalk. So, and I do like just to keep going with my brush because I'm getting different values. As I'm using up the paint on my brush, it gets lighter and lighter, which I really like because that's a lot more interesting. And there we go. And then I'll go in and just wash, rinse my brush, pick up some of that green again, and go in and create those long stalks. And I even like to go in while it's a little bit wet still, and then maybe create, which this kind of looks more like lavender, those long leaves. This is a fun little exercise to practice at night too. And look at how cute. Look at all these different options you have for your florals. You can just tuck these in anywhere. Let's see, let's do some cute little daisies. Let's see, we'll do them. Let me do the center first. And I don't have any of these in here, but they are blooming outside in my garden. Let's see. I'm going to do the center here. So I used a cad yellow there, Winsor Newton. And let's do one more. Maybe right here. These things have been so beautiful this year, but they kind of die quickly. And then I'm just going to use a barely damp brush, and I might even just a tiny bit tap in. Let's see, where's my black? I use Payne's Gray, by the way. I don't use the real dark blacks. And I just want the tiniest bit on there to look like a shadow maybe. And I'm going to touch in very lightly with the tip of my brush into that yellow and then pull it out. Oh, look how cute. So it's got some of that yellow in it, but it's also got a touch of that gray, which just makes it feel kind of shadowy. So very light pressure, kind of swirling around the tip of my brush. I'm going to add a tiniest bit of that gray. And just drawing these little petals. These are such fun, cute little flowers. So just using that tip. And then go back into the green. And they have these really long stems. I pick them quite often and put them in here in my office, in my studio. And then we'll create some, these kind of have fatter leaves. And they're kind of wiggly and have some rough edges on them like that. I might pick up a little bit. My favorite two greens are always tree green in Winsor Newton and olive green. Looks like my palette's almost out of my olive green. Got a little bit too much pigment there. So there you go, something really simple. Now, mine actually also have this really dark color in the middle, so I think I'll pick up some of that brown color and just look at how much just something that small adds to the flower. Like get rid of a little bit of the water, the liquid. And look how fun that is. What a pretty little flower. Let's see, what should we do next? How about we do a little rose next? That's just a fun one to paint. So I'm using some of that opera and quin magenta, and I'm going to start with the center. So I'm just using the tip of my brush, holding my brush a little bit more upright and creating these C's. I've got lots of tutorials on how I do my roses. And then as I'm moving out, so right there, I'm just using C strokes and the tip of my brush light pressure. As I'm moving outward, I start point, press, start just making point, press. So when I'm pointing, when I'm saying point, what I mean by that is I'm just using the tip of my brush, point, press, like that. I might add a little bit more color and go in. You want it with roses, I really like to try and keep some white space in between. I think that's real important. And now I'm even using the side of my brush, point, press, there we go. Point, press, and it just gets bigger and bigger. I'm offsetting the petals, point, press. Now I'm gonna make some a little bit bigger. Look at how pretty. Point, press, and you can certainly go in and just wet brush and kind of, you know, soften the edges if you really want to. But I think it's even fine just how it is. But if you're like me and you really like that kind of watery effect, I think it's always fun to soften edges. And then I might add on a little bit more paint, maybe pick up a tiny bit of cad orange, or even, you know what, let's do cad yellow, because I love cad yellow and the pink together. It kind of turns into a beautiful orange. And again, this could be just one you randomly throw in to your paintings, and look how pretty. Okay, let's go ahead and do the stem. So I'll go back into that green and very little. So I'm going to make it a little bit thicker, maybe even add some of those thorns, and then we'll come out with our, using the side of my brush to create some of those petals. Leaves. There you go. Okay, let's see here. What could be our last one? Well, we can do peonies. Those are always fun. So I'm going to use a lot of the side of my brush. So wash, rinse my brush, tap it off. And ooh, let's use some of that opera pink. I just recently bought quite a few peonies, and but they all died. Okay, you know what? I think I really want to use this sparkly color again. So I'm going to add my opera pink to that. And for how I usually start my peonies, they're always in a bowl, kind of look like a little bowl or a cup. I'm going to use the side of my brush first to kind of create, I need a little bit more water, that first petal. And then I just start going in a direction like this. Maybe come out here with some that are hanging down. which they do that a lot. They're really rather wide and just kind of fluffy. I always add in some around the back, and I'm doing like a point press point. So I'm creating kind of little teardrops. There we go. And while that's a little bit wet, I might go in with the Quin Magenta and just add in some interesting, while it's wet, so we get a little bit of that blend. There we go. I just love how, oops, I got a chunk on there. And wash, rinse, and encourage that to kind of spread a little bit. And you can do the same thing if you really want to soften some of those edges. And then let's create some of the little peony leaves. So they remind me of being kind of fluffy too. And you know, I always say I really put my twist on these flowers. Yes, it's inspired definitely by the peony, but you know, I kind of do my own thing. I like making them how I like making them. And then I'm just using some water here to create some more. So there's a peony. Oh, you know what? Let's do the center. Let's use some cad yellow and just make those little, of course, what you always is so recognizable about the peony is those little center sections. So there you go. And really, you know, play with this. Add as much water, add all the little details in there. And I think that's good. You could always go in and add some layers. Like even in this, well, I called it kind of salvia. It could be some lavender. Salvia is definitely a longer stalk, but you can always go in there and have fun with that and maybe add in some little touches with picking up more paint like that. So you could do that in here. Now that this is dry, you could go in and just add some extra color, especially in the center. In the center, I always add more color. So I'm just using those little C shapes. And then as you branch out, you kind of get lighter. All right, well, there you go. I hope those were some fun little flowers you could play with. And, you know, keep it simple sometimes. Just have fun with these. These are great fillers. And I will list my supplies below. I keep all my links that I order my supplies with, and these hopefully will be out in September. Thank you to those of you who have already signed up to be notified. That shows them there is an interest in my brushes. I'm quite a small artist here on YouTube, so you know, they like to see that. And I will also share my Winsor Newton palette. And thank you for being here with me, and let's keep having fun. All right, happy painting, everyone.